I have to tell you, I was so excited that this was our big read this weekend because 23andMe is a company that has fascinated me for so long. And I have to tell you, I actually have never done it. Did you ever get the service done?
I have not taken a consumer DNA test, which you might find interesting given that I've been covering this area for a very long time.
Okay. Well, it's very, why not? I mean, it was just sort of thinking about what's the rationale?
I think these DNA tests are great and they can offer a lot of really interesting and important information for people. I hesitated, I think, because there are genetic privacy issues involved. I don't know if you know this, but like if you have kids, you share 50% of DNA with them. Siblings, you share around 50% of DNA with them. So when you take a test and you put it in a database, you're essentially not just making a decision about your own genetic privacy, but also people who are really close to you. And I kind of hesitated about doing that, making decisions for my entire family by just taking my own test.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, that is actually that's a lot more thought than I put into it. I think I just never got around to it, honestly. But anyway, okay. I want to talk about the story that you wrote because you sat down with Anne Wojcicki, and I want to get to that conversation. But before we get there, I mean, just walk us through the history of 23andMe because it's been such a fascinating story to watch.
It really has. I mean, the company was founded nearly 20 years ago, and I think people have forgotten that when it was founded, the entire medical establishment really was against the idea that you should have access to, doing a DNA test, spitting in a tube, sending your saliva, from home and getting your own information without a doctor being involved. Like this is a profound social and cultural revolution that happened. And then over the years, 23andMe, I mean, I think what they found is it became challenging to find a profitable model. They tried all different kinds of ways, and in 2021, they went public, and that was even more difficult because, answering to investors is always challenging, and the stock price went down, and, they ended up in bankruptcy.
And when you talk about the business model being so tough, what was it that was so tough? Is it very expensive to get these tests processed in the back end? Was it sort of a plateauing of customer interest? What was the fundamental reasons there?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things, but yes, when they were first introduced, they were pretty expensive, but the price, went down to around $99, and there were always sales around Christmas when it was even cheaper. So people started to be able to afford the tests, and I mean, they were ubiquitous. I mean, their database has got like 13 million people in it, which is just, huge and really impressive. But there were some privacy issues, sales started to sort of stall a little bit. I think that there's a lot of people who are interested, but I think a lot of them did it kind of as entertainment. Um, it's a really difficult model to try to persuade people that they should pay for health stuff. I think a lot of people expect insurers to reimburse them when it's health related. So it's been tough to try to find the right model.
Okay, so the company files for bankruptcy, she's out of the picture at this point. I mean, she's not with the company when the
Well,
company.
no, I mean, she was the CEO,
Okay,
and when the board said that it wanted to sell the company, she made some offers. She
okay,
couple times she made offers even more, and the board, various boards, there was a whole story there, turned her down. And eventually the board decided that they were going to sell the company, but through a bankruptcy process. Anne wanted to be an independent bidder, so she stepped down as CEO and said, "I'm gonna try to buy the company myself."
okay, and so she gets it. I mean, she pours a lot of her own fortune into buying the company back, and I think in your reporting you said we don't know the exact figure, but we know at least it was quite a bit of her own money that she put into it.
Well, all the entire bid that she eventually won, $305 million bid plus $85 million to cover operating expenses, that was her own personal money. I mean,
Wow.
we don't know how much of that represents her total
Hmm.
fortune, but I mean, that's a sizable amount of money for someone to say, "I'm gonna buy it."
And so what now? I mean, what questions were you when you get an interview with Anne Wojcicki? I mean, this is a person that hasn't really spoken a lot now about the next iteration of the company. I'm curious what the questions that you went into that conversation were and how you were thinking about that.
Well, for one thing, I think what's most interesting and people are curious about is when she bought it back, she decided it's not going to be a company anymore. It's going to be a nonprofit. And that's just a whole other model because, on the one hand, you don't have to answer to investors, which is great, but to be sustaining, and she doesn't, I think she hasn't decided yet, she said, but like, she doesn't know how much more of her own money she's going to put into this. But like to be self sustaining, she's going to have to attract a lot of philanthropy. And also, she wants to get more customers to keep buying tests because that's another sustaining revenue model. So we spent a lot of time thinking about like, what's the new, talking about what she was thinking about for the nonprofit model. Like, how does that differ? She launched $100 million capital campaign. And so she has to attract a lot of donations.
Hmm. And these donors, I mean, one of the things that I found interesting was that the environment in which we are talking about health today is a little bit different than it might have been a couple years ago because of this movement. Make America Healthy Again is something people are talking about. She certainly has a very wealthy network, but
Yeah.
is this a fundamentally different ecosystem for a project like this today?
Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of things have changed. Like one thing I should say is, and that she shared is that, she has made even inroads already. She's got a great Rolodex, as you mentioned. And I mean, there one donor who asked to remain anonymous, but like he didn't even get asked. Like he saw her at a tech conference. He heard that she was turning into a nonprofit and he reached out and said, I'd like to pledge $20 million. I mean, that's not that common also, for many nonprofits. So that started. But you're right, the ecosystem is so different. Anne has always, because she started so early, she faced the medical, she faced down the medical establishment. She locked horns with the FDA. Like she sees herself, even as much as she's part of the, Silicon Valley establishment, she always kind of sees herself as an outsider at the same time. I mean, it's a kind of unique thing. And she said that she really was, feels comfortable at least with the energy of the Maha, you know, we need our information. I'm the best expert. I can, be transparent with me. Like she really vibes with that. And I think she's hoping that she can find a way for the nonprofit to fit into at least that aspect of the Maha movement.
Did you guys discuss the economics of the business at all in terms of we were talking about the profitability of a single test even, that you have to make the test cheap enough to make it affordable. I imagine it's expensive to run in the background, but I mean, back to the sort of the fundamental business model, is she thinking about that differently at all in this new iteration for the company?
I think right now what I was struck by is that the business model on the consumer side is pretty similar to what it had been for the, for the for-profit company, which means, trying to convince people to buy tests, trying to convince them to pay, annual subscriptions to get access to more advanced reports. At the same time, she has to have this new identity as a nonprofit to try to attract philanthropists. I mean, it's a real balancing act. When I sat down with her, she's still at the very beginning, like, of trying to figure this all out. So right now, the business model on the consumer side looks pretty similar. And whether that's going to be any more successful or more successful in this iteration remains to be seen.
And so, but I am just curious. I mean, when you walked away from this conversation, you've been covering the space for so long. Did you leave feeling confident in a second wind here for 23andMe? I mean, they don't have shareholders anymore. It's just nonprofits. So, I mean, presumably this is going to work.
I mean, listen, I never underestimate anyone in Silicon Valley, especially Anne, because she really fought to, get this back. I think the question, and there's no question that DNA testing is part of all of our lives. Okay. So the big question though is, can she turn this database that the company amassed over so many years and now the nonprofit has, can she turn it into something that will draw in people that weren't doing this before? Can she get scientists to use it? Can she get companies to maybe, contribute? Can she get philanthropists? I think that it's promising, but it's a really crowded marketplace. And so it's too soon to really counter out, but also it's too soon to be sure that this is going to succeed.
Right. Well, Amy, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing with us all that you found. That is Amy Dockser Marcus, our health and science reporter here at The Information.